Hey, what is going on? I had to spend a couple of weeks really thinking about what I wanted to say because my goal is to resolve problems and to show the world the best part of me. Before I begin, I just wanted to say that I have a statement that I prepared, but unfortunately I did not bring it with me. So I am alone and I need to show this. Because what this is, one second, I'm going to continue filming. Excuse me, I need the one-page statement. And this is practice. Why is this practice? I'll explain it to you. The whole world thinks I'm completely crazy. So rather than fighting and continuously trying to disprove everyone, I will simply embrace reality and wind down the negative content and really express to everyone who the real Dan Reeses is. And this sweater is from a company called Woolrich, which I'm going to discuss with you on Wednesday. Before I begin, I wanted to tell everyone the truth. And the truth is that the story of Dan Reeses really begins and ends and is completely different once I met my best friend, Pierce. This entire story is dedicated to Pierce, especially chapter 1. Chapter 2, I'm going to dedicate to Drake, but before I even begin chapter 1, I have a statement that I want to read, and my goal is to be honest. It's to cut the bullshit. It's to really, if you're someone that doesn't like me, you're really going to hate some of this content. But if there's a part of you that still loves me, you're really going to love it because the real me is here. And a lot of people misunderstand a human being who is very complicated on the surface, but really simple on the inside. And I prepared this statement to express the validity of how much I care about other people that have expressed to me their love, and to show that I am far from crazy. What I am is extremely eccentric. I've been hurt a lot, and I have a very hard time expressing myself. So I have found this channel to be a platform where I can be myself and what I believe is to be the truth. I recognize that many of you do not believe some of the things that I have said on this channel. But if you take away the elements that you do not believe, I am still left as the most impressive person you'll ever meet in your life. What that means is that even the most cynical of haters has to recognize my ability to express myself just on this channel alone, let alone what I do in the background, let alone what I stake claim to. I currently weigh 172 pounds. I look a little bit, I don't know, I think I look decent. This is the best shape I've ever been in my life. This is also the best mental shape I've ever been in my life. I am currently displaced, but if what I calculate to be true, and this video will most likely work in one of two ways, and I'll explain it to you. I am currently in, if anyone likes the show Stranger Things, there's something called the sensory deprivation tank. When I film, I need to be in a room that has no distractions, and I am extremely hyper-focused on the words that are coming out of my mouth rather than any of the distractions. So before I even begin, I wanted to say that over the last couple of days have been some of the best days of my life, because when I stopped filming content and working on exactly what I am working on, I found it to really open up some doors that have been artificially closed. One of them was a friendship door. Another one was a door to my child and communicating with my child. And there are things that have been done that are very much illegal. And just because other people have broken the law does not mean it'll trigger me to break the law. And most of you that don't like me believe that given the circumstances of who I am, my character, my nature, and my inability to accept being bullied, I would fly off the hinges and do something erratic, illegal, and I would jeopardize my freedom. Alas, not only is this far from the truth, I have to remind everyone that humor is really the only way to deal in these traumatic situations, because any person without the actual ability to go through what I went through truly doesn't understand what I'm going through and what my kids, more importantly, are going through. Because not only have I temporarily been displaced and all these terrible things, but my children have lost a father, a human being, myself, who has dedicated his entire life, well, my children's entire life, to be fair, to making sure that not only am I present, but I'm also the man that they want, that my wife wants. And I've changed many, many things about myself to a point where I've lost track of who I am as a man. And I was able to justify abuse and being treated really horribly, all because of my infatuation and love for my children. But the real truth is I loved myself when I was a father, because I am always going to be a father. It cannot be undone. It cannot be taken away. Therefore, I will always have the fondest, best memories of me and my boys. I hope I'm being clear and I'm making sense. And I also want to explain to everyone that human beings who suffer from mental illnesses that you attribute me to having simply cannot film this type of structured narrative content, nor do they have the ability to control themselves during erratic situations. What I do have is extreme ADD, which I have decided to simply disclose for the first time. My children, at least one of the two of them, in my opinion, suffered from very similar afflictions, and the other one is just like me. So that is not a joke. But the reality is that it has been almost 6 months since I have truly been a father to my boys. I haven't seen them for over 4.5 months. I haven't been able to speak to them for months. Over 4. It is beyond illegal what has been done, and most people do not understand how that can possibly be. The judge has invented a series of circumstances or hoops that I have to jump through prior to getting my children back. So what the judge did was take my children away from me for no reason whatsoever. There was no reason cited. I went as far as reverse engineering the entire courtroom litigation process via something called the rhesus paradox, all in an effort to prove exactly the nature of what has been done to me. Clearly, there are many of you who believe that these videos are insane. What really is insane, in my opinion, is taking away a child from an adult or a parent who is not only loving but also capable and has not been properly screened for the accusations and the ailments that I have been artificially attributed to having. Let me read this, because this is coming from the heart. The truth about who I really am, disclosed in the most honest way possible. Let me take these off so I can read a little bit better. Oh, before I even begin, can I just say something? When I was growing up, there was a boy that I played soccer with. His name was Matt Wong. And Matt was, I believe, either from Taiwan, Korea, China, irregardless. Matt's father worked as an oil tanker barge captain, a higher-up senior executive for one of the larger Maersk, I have no idea. But essentially, from what I was able to understand, Matt grew up on the Heritage side, I grew up on Livingston side. I hated playing soccer. It was one of the most unbelievably boring and worst parts of my adolescence. But because it was pretty cool and I liked walking with a pitch in tow when I didn't really have one. This kid, Matt Wong, other than having a huge head, and it's the truth, he had a large head. I wasn't the person that really, Adam Manger and a few of the other boys that were a little bit meaner really made fun of him because he wore his hat on like one of the last rungs on the thing. And he wasn't very tall, but he was an excellent soccer player. And one of the things that was really fascinating is that Matt's father has spent 8 to 10 months out to sea every single year for the majority of his life. That is how he was able to earn a living for his family. So he didn't see his son for 8 to 10 months out of the year. Then he would spend 2 months doing nothing but spending 24/7, and that's the way he grew up. So Matt Wong was one of the kids that we grew up with, and we never were able to get in contact with him whenever we had pickup games of soccer. We called and we called and we called, and he never answered. And do you guys know why? Well, I'm going to tell you, because we kept calling the wrong number. Crickets? All right, get it? Wrong number. So anyways, no, that's not true. I wasn't really that close with him. Nice boy. Nothing really to say. But essentially, the point of the story is that even though that I have been artificially taken away from my kids, and my kids have been taken away from me, you can't lose the humor in this situation that neither me nor the boys did anything to deserve this. So that's what's really funny, is because when I see the boys, it's not going to be like we missed each other for, the 6 months that we haven't been each other. It's like we haven't seen each other for 2 seconds. It's hard to explain. You need to have a certain bond with your children to really understand that. And any parent will understand that in 2 seconds. That during the last court hearing, for a few seconds, I was offered to see my children with a supervised person, as if I had done something. I even called the judge's bluff, and I was like, you know what, Judge, all right, no problem, let's go get whatever you want. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. The judge literally rejected and the craziest part of the whole thing is that the judge had asked, let's say that I entertained the judge, which I did because I would do anything to get my kids back. I needed to go through a psychiatric evaluation as well as mandatory drug screening. I went to LabCorp right away, got the drug screening done, and I went through 2 psychiatric evaluations, one through my doctor that has been treating me for 5 years, as well as I tried to check myself into the Morristown Medical Center. Not only that, this is already the 2nd time that I've tried to do this, and one time was with my wife, Mallory, in like 2021, 22, when people thought that I had lost my mind. I said, no problem, please, everyone calm down. I think the most responsible thing to do is go through the mandatory screening of a human being who has a support system that's concerned for them. And yesterday when I was watching the football game, I noticed that Terry Crews is making infomercials for The More You Know, which I will do a little bit of research about, but essentially it talks about mental health and how if you're in a life of someone who you believe is suffering from mental health issues, well, it's not a good idea to stay away from that person, but rather engage with that person and see how you can help, communicate, and speak to that human being. I'm a firm believer in this, and I think Terry Crews is awesome. Cheeseburger Eddie, Drake, that's who Terry is. And he's a former both football player as well as an actor who is now not only an activist, but also finds himself as being a victim of sexual harassment. Believe it or not, if you do some research, Terry Crews and I find each other in a very similar category where we're heterosexual men that have been fit into a non-traditional role of conflict. Me being a victim of domestic violence, as well as, see how fast I glossed that over, and Terry Crews being a victim of sexual harassment, being that the majority of human beings are stereotyped when a situation occurs. So a good example of a stereotype is that people believe that just because you're out in public and you are supported by media or someone outside of the courts, then you are okay to be a human being that is an abuser in a domestic violence incident. Now, Stefan Diggs and one other individual have been publicly accused of, with some very serious evidence, corroborating evidence, of them being the aggressors of domestic violence incidents. But essentially, no one cares. Those 2 gentlemen have been fully supported by the NFL, and I will say that I agree with the decision because they haven't been proven guilty in a court of law. But when compared to what's going on in my situation, there have been fabricated arrests, and I could do nothing about it other than saying, I have submitted for the drug screenings, I have passed. I have submitted for psychiatric evaluations, 2 separate venues, I have fully passed. the judge has invented that I have to go to a doctor that is a court-approved doctor. Now, please remember how scary this is. This is the same court that took my children away, as well as 3 female judges, incoherent voices as the 3 sirens of the Essex County Family Court Division, have unilaterally decided that my wife Mallory is the primary caretaker without any actual adjudication. There's been no fact findings. There's been no hearings that show anything regarding evidence. These are called evidentiary hearings. And no matter what I say or do regarding the truth about my ability to orate myself and speak publicly, it does not matter. It is the fear and the inability of others to do the same thing that prevents the majority of people from sitting back and calmly listening to a story that will not only blow your minds, you will not believe it until the very end of the first chapter, and then you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. But if you give me a chance, you will see from the direct result of just today's video that not only am I willing to do absolutely anything to get my children back, I'm not willing to break the law yet. And I say yet because eventually, the longer that people continue to break the law and keep me away from my children, the longer I formulate a plan where essentially I will first need to set myself up financially, so I'll need to make a lot of money very quickly. Luckily, today I intend to make $2 million US via a transaction that has been sitting in front of everyone's faces, but no one but me is able to pull the trigger on the extremely difficult choices that need to be made, decisions that need to be made when human beings find themselves going through a legal divorce process, which I find myself in. But rather than running, I would like to state the following. Personal Statement of Disclosure and Conceptual Framework by Daniel M. Rhesus. I'm making this statement deliberately, carefully, and for the first time in my life. There are many times in my life where I've spoken, stated my conditions, people have laughed, but I assure you, this is no laughing matter, and this is a very serious thing that has really been the crux of the, quote, mystery of why I act a certain way when in certain settings, because there are very few humans like myself who are able to truly take on the risks and the responsibilities of being the shepherds of a society of human beings who have chosen to really forget that we live in a society, a grouping of other human beings. And I care about other people a lot. I care a lot more than most people can ever understand. So with that being said, I'm publicly disclosing that I live with an extreme and lifelong form of attention and cognitive divergence commonly associated with ADD and ADHD. I am not a medical professional, and I am not offering a clinical diagnosis. This statement reflects my lived experience, my self-observation over decades, and the functional reality of how my mind operates in the world. Please recognize that what I'm talking about is nothing more than me expressing to you that you have all chosen to laugh, ridicule, ignore, and discourage what I do. What I say to you is that without the ability for me to not only record what I do, but publicly disseminate it and communicate with thousands of people across a single platform, I would never be able to do my job, be the man that I want to be, and unwind this ridiculous project, because the truth is, I want to be happy. I want my family to be happy. This is absolutely impossible, given that the Rhesus paradox has been identified and the resolution has been ignored. Let me continue. To describe this reality accurately, I am introducing a conceptual framework I have developed. Me, Daniel M. Rhesus, which I call ADHID. Attention Deficit Hyperactive Intelligence Disorder. ADHID is not a medical diagnosis. It is a descriptive model meant to explain a paradoxical cognitive state that I have lived with my entire life. The simultaneous presence of extreme intellectual capacity and extreme difficulty functioning within ordinary, linear, everyday structures. Guys, this is a fancy way of me saying I can do the most advanced things in the world, but when it comes to, one second, I'm going to lunch and having pizza. You know, I'm really lucky. I will stop the world and speak. My kids are worth it. There are a lot of people who don't understand that their love for their children really is based on something called dad goggles, mom goggles, whatever. I know I have that, I get it, but I promise you my kids are actually fucking amazing. They are so special and so talented that what I have done is so worth it that only in time will they be able to grow up and understand that I've paved the way for the truth about how difficult it is to be both extremely intelligent as well as having insane amounts of uncontrollable energy. And one of my two children cannot tolerate lies like I cannot. And there's a whole medical thing behind that, but I'm not going to go into that. I am capable of holding, processing, and synthesizing hundreds of complex variables at once. Abstract systems, advanced concepts, pattern recognition, and high-level problem solving are not difficult for me. They are intuitive. Means it's like breathing for me, guys. To solve very difficult problems is not very difficult for me. And many people are extremely impressed by that. What I want to express to you is that you should be impressed by my ability to do the rudimentary things and be able to change on a dime. Well, it took a lot of work and a lot of dedication, and make this content of this channel positive driven and extremely, extremely indicative of who I am both as a human being and my ability to generate an income, as well as express myself and find myself to be living in an ordinary world with extraordinary abilities. Whether or not you want to laugh at me, mock me, or ridicule me, I look for a person to compare myself to and be driven by their ability to do things better than me. I have not found a human being who has the ability to do the quantity of things that I can do with how little I am given. And I'm looking forward to proving that to both myself as well as my very limited and extremely doubtful support system. But I assure you, today I will present something that will make easy $2 million. How I'm able to do this and why I've delayed on this is very simple. Until I saw how much my child really loves me, because it's very complicated, but his love for me has been held back. And until I realized exactly what's going on, I wasn't truly motivated or driven to do what I need to do. Because please remember, ladies and gentlemen, what I do is an actual skill, commercial real estate, business, arbitrage, and the application of advanced tax concepts in order to not avoid paying taxes, but to reinvest income back into the economic structure of the United States government, as well as the financial institutions that are the backbone of the derivative markets that run interest-bearing instruments that make money for human beings who invest their money for the future. In a complicated way, I'm here to help, not hurt. So for human beings who want to dismiss me or label me as both mentally ill as well as some form of negativity, please understand that all it does is express to the other 99% exactly your position. I've already seen the turn. Judges have already realized exactly what's going on. And based on what I describe as the Rhesus Paradox, you will see that the next video that I film will have nothing to do perhaps with this one, because this channel is a part of my business model. I intend to use this channel as a descriptive form of what human beings who find themselves in difficult situations should use as the roadmap while their life is being destroyed in front of their eyes. I've had that happen to me. I've had that happen to me both on purpose and not on purpose. The purposeful part of this is that I have allowed people who want to hurt me because it would really create an artificial sifter, if you will, of the true nature of people who either love me or are simply using me. And once I ran out of both money as well as what they wanted, they didn't want me in their life anymore. But what I really saw was that I have given very little to my sons in the last few months because I've had very little to interact with them. Not because I didn't want to, but because there's a lot of complicated legal matters that I have chosen not to talk about. And my choice to not talk about it and my silence is truly the most powerful thing you can imagine. Because once you see on Wednesday that if the people that I'm going against choose to completely ignore my calls for peace, as well as the fact that, hey, look, we all make mistakes, even me. These situations that I find myself in, believe it or not, are not the result of anything that I did wrong. I have not only complied, but the judge even had the audacity to say that the delay in me seeing my children is my fault. A person who took my children away without due process now is inventing a reason to say, and I have the transcripts, and I reverse engineered an unbelievable model of applied math that is, in my opinion, worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And what it does is, it is able to, well, I can't give it away yet because I would like to really finish and polish it up because it's absolutely brilliant. So what I've done is I've taken every single transcript and put it through the system and was able to pump out fully formed transcripts that should have been done manually and spent tens of thousands of dollars. I was able to do at a fraction of the price, given the proprietary business model of ProSlay and how perfectly accurate they are. You would never believe that the analytics that are run show the paradoxes as well as the lies that each and every judge says in court. So you don't need to believe me ever again. You could actually fully believe that I'm crazy, and I have more than enough evidence to show that I am not only the victim of a crime, but based on false declarations and lies purported to the court, I have found myself having to defend myself against phantom issues. And phantom issues cannot be dealt with in a real sense. It's like fighting ghosts. You first have to fight a ghost to fight one. This isn't some weird form of Don Quixote. We're dealing with a real court system that is really breaking the law and really has been proven fully wrong and has no ability to actually answer for themselves. For example, going through a divorce process, I'm required to do something called a case information statement. Pretty simple. It is a detailed outline of all your financial assets and things like that. Not only have I now received the one from the adversary, which has been supposedly submitted to the courts, but I need to be able to inventory and really get something called either cost or market value of every single piece of inventory that I own, while simultaneously being blocked from my own house. And the judge is so wound up as if there's something that happened, and I have to keep a straight face. I have to be like, oh my God, this lady is like, and I'll tell you something, and I'm going to call for an immediate psychiatric evaluation for the judge, because any judge who can hurt children should be psychiatrically evaluated. You have to understand that she has deliberately and painstakingly hurt my two minors without any reason. She has had no motivation to do this. She has taken it upon herself. But the truth is, guys, come on. We're talking about 3 female judges. We're talking about Judge Esther Salas, somebody who is most likely inside of the metadata of communication. And one of the most amazing things is, while we're in court, the adversary for the other side is making fun of me because of the word metadata. This is an attorney in 2026 who does not understand the importance of something called metadata. It is mind-blowing, and that's why one of the reasons why I was silent. I was like, wow, I'm dealing with some very unintelligent people who have conveniently created this air of insanity for me. And instead of fighting them, I have simply embraced that this is the true nature of bullies and people who do not respect intellect and people who find that bravery in the eyes of one of the most difficult situations any human being, let alone a man of code and honor, can possibly go through, can only be understated through non-action. My lack of any sort of erratic behavior, violent nature, violent accusations, or anything is my statement. My silence cannot be overstated, because rather than fighting and creating the monster that I'm accused of being, which I am not. Granted, I know that the words that I say are very powerful, and I know that my ability to speak, process information, as well as deliver that information in a timely manner far exceeds anything that I've ever seen, both human and artificial intelligence. And granted, I know that that's a very scary statement for you to accept and digest, but I would love to see any examples of any human beings that are able to create, disseminate, and go into the elements of this video, which I haven't even started yet. Please remember, I haven't even started this part, because the truth is that silence and structured thought are very dangerous to my enemies. I have taken the time to deliberately think about each and every word. I have perfectly memorized it. I have not rehearsed a single thing. I can wear these glasses during this process to show the validity of the fact that I'm alone in this room. You can hear that there's no doors opening or closing. I understand that that doesn't really prove anything, but showing the video and continuing the speech and going through an honor system, well, eventually it'll hopefully turn on. The reality of what I'm talking about is this cognitive profile did not arise in a vacuum. I experienced significant trauma in childhood. It's not a joke. Everything I try to do is to have my kids avoid trauma. It is to avoid lying to them so that when they get older, they are not heartbroken like I was. My trauma stemmed from a series of lies that were deliberately told to me, which I have had to find out the very difficult way, both through my early teen years all the way up until the point where my mother robbed me of everything that I had accumulated in the business sense. I also had other assets taken from me later. But to go into all of that, I have to go into the long form, which is the first chapter. Including years of abuse by my mother. So I experienced significant trauma in childhood, including years of abuse by my mother. I know many of you would want to laugh. I know a lot of you would say, why are you talking about this on YouTube? This is embarrassing. You're doing exactly what we asked you not to do. Do not talk about this on YouTube. This is what I want to tell to everyone. Until you have understood the pain that I'm currently living with, knowing that my spouse knew the trauma that I went through and was able to replicate extreme versions of it using both my children as well as law enforcement and manipulating them, please do not speak to me about advice, because you do not care about me. You have created a series of conditions behind our friendship. I do not offer a single condition behind my friendship that I offer to any of my friends. I'm here no matter what, let alone my children, who can do no wrong in my eyes. Because in my role as a father, I have to experience true loss to understand the value of my children's presence in my life, as well as my presence in their life. And very few people in our society have the ability to both articulate themselves and create a coherent message to the world saying, hey, if you know you're a good father, if you know you're a good mother, you don't need a certificate. You don't need anyone to tell you otherwise. You need to stand up and you need to vocalize exactly the wrongs that have occurred. And many people in my life do not believe that it is not my fault that I've been separated from my children. They don't really conceptualize or understand that my wife today can get this video and say, you know what, I want my children to be with their father. There's ways around it, and it'll be horrible if she does this when I present the $2 million offer, because it'll show the truth that until I buy my love, I have very little love from everyone except Drake, Pierce, Morty, and a few others. I state this fact without embellishment or accusation. but as context. The environment required me to develop extreme internal coping mechanisms in order to survive. One of those mechanisms was the ability to compartmentalize, split attention, and operate multiple internal threads of consciousness simultaneously. Again, I'm not claiming medical diagnosis. I am describing a survival adaptation. In my own words, it feels as though my consciousness can fracture into parallel processes, allowing me to analyze, anticipate, and protect myself, while simultaneously making it difficult to fully inhabit ordinary, linear life. I engage deeply with the most advanced ideas on Earth, yet struggle with tasks that require narrow focus, routine pacing, and emotional safety. That doesn't mean I'm mentally ill or that I'm incapable of doing things. It's just that I find them difficult, where you find them extremely easy. Very, very difficult things or impossible things in your life are just like breathing air for me. Please understand that I do not fit the mold of a typical type of what I would say is the genius model, because I am not a human being that displays characteristics of flaws and various other weaknesses, such as in Rain Man, and cool, great movie by the way, or Good Will Hunting, especially not in The Accountant, another great movie. And Ben Affleck, it's so hot right now. Again, I'm not claiming medical diagnosis. This paradox has defined my life. This is the core reason why I can't control myself in certain court environments when both lies and abuse are not only tolerated, but they are encouraged by the judge. And I have transcript upon transcript to prove this. So no matter how articulated, calm, coherent, and nice I am, and I start out, the judge continues to routinely abuse me, make fun of me, lie to taint the record, and know that I have a very, very, very extreme form of ADD, that any disruption to the truth, which is the narrative that I am only interested in, because it can be rewound. We live in a digital world. I have boys, I have children that I need to take care of, not just today, but in 5 years, 10 years, during their wedding day. I can't be the person that I'm being described as, not for a day, not for a minute, not for a second, and definitely not for the months that I've had to tolerate. This is also the source of my work. So this paradox has defined my life, but it's also the source of my work. The rhesus paradox, which I have articulated mathematically and conceptually, is not an abstract thought experiment. It is a reflection of my internal experience applied outward to systems, law, power, and society. How something can be procedurally correct, yet fundamentally unjust. How form can exist without truth. How intelligence can be hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding. Complexity in what I present. I have to show that I'm alone. Give me a second. There's a reason for this. I'll get into all this later. Relax. My intellectual capacity is real. Guys, everything that I'm saying is 100% the truth. I recognize that many of you, especially the ones that are very close to me, do not believe that I have any association with the office of the president, let alone the fact that I stake claim to the things that I do. Please understand that not only is it all true, most of the best parts, I've had to really reflect and decide to not talk about. Because I've realized that if you do not believe a story that happened in front of your own eyes, with me being the CEO of Pierce Bainbridge and managing the cases for both Tulsi Gabbard, who is now the Director of National Intelligence, as well as managing one of the most complicated criminal trials in modern day history, which had extreme, profound after effects, both society-wise, legally, financially, and definitely morally. Because we as a society realize that we are the creators of our own internal cancer that is eating away at all aspects of our life. And when the media stopped focusing their attention on the negativity, which was a constant source of the rioting, the looting, the lawful behavior that was justified via both COVID, Black Lives Matter, and defund police. 3 very misunderstood subjects that were unfortunately the core source of the pain for tens of millions of Americans, and still continue to be, because the confusion and the lack of understanding of what we as a society went through has caused a permanent source of trauma as well as pain in all of you who find yourselves to be confused by my ability to discuss this subject matter with fully fluid ability. And there I go, tripping myself up. I guess it only proves that one thing. I'm human after all. And irregardless is one of the many words that I've had to invent, because I found that my ability to think both in English and Russian, and that is a common question that people ask me since they know that I'm fluent in both languages, what does your brain think in? And I say that there are certain basic things that I learned as a young man before the age of 6.5 and before I left Russia, which I learned in the Russian language. And there are certain other things that I learned afterwards. And then there's this amalgamated form of a language that I've created myself, which is a combination of books, movies, music, as well as invented words and stories and anecdotes that I do the best I can to deliver to the people that I'm speaking to the truth and the true nature of what I am trying to convey. My complexity as a human being do not mean that I am dangerous, I am unlawful, difficult, or anything but one of the most advanced forms of a human being who uses, let's be honest, my handicap. I have one of the most severe and advanced forms of ADD you will ever meet by any human being, who not only is functioning, but is able to weaponize that ADD across multiple platforms to say, wait a second, if I can't focus on one thing, why don't I just embrace that I can focus on hundreds of things, focus on those things, and be the poster child for what a human being can truly achieve if they accept reality and work on themselves and use their handicaps as strengths. How something can be profoundly correct. My intellectual capacity is real. It is also deliberately masked. Listen carefully, all you haters out there. Over time, I learned, often the hard way, that visible intelligence attracts exploitations. It sucks. Drake Pierce, trust me, you'll see this in the next couple of years, especially when you get older. Kindness attracts manipulation. Generosity attracts those who take without repercussions. As a result, much of my life has been spent building layers of protection, appearing less capable than I am, absorbing harm silently, and helping others while neglecting myself. I believe that one of the reasons why I choose to isolate myself as an adult is because I am in so much pain by not having my boys in my life daily, that I do not care for the shenanigans of human beings who I've routinely helped for decades, who find themselves absent from my life. And a human being who truly cares for me and believes that they are someone that wants the best for me would definitely reach out and communicate with me every once in a while. But the reality is that most of you have used this YouTube channel, as well as the truth that I have perceptually lost tens of millions of dollars, as a reason to abandon your relationship. But that's not what I would do. I would never do to my friends what they have done to me. And the silent support of Mallory, as well as my other adversaries, by the people that are closest to me. And please understand that if you do not stand up with me against bullying, manipulation, child alienation, and all the things that I stand for, then you really are going and standing for the other side. There is no ability to be neutral when you're in a game theory-esque model. Please understand there's no such thing as neutrality or a tie in a one-on-one zero sum. That is what I find myself in, not by my choice, but by the accusations of others as a defense mechanism for me having enough of the bullshit. I cannot tolerate anymore. My children deserved a better environment, and I definitely got so used to getting the piss beaten out of me that I actually believe that it was okay. And it's not okay. I help people instinctively. I solve problems reflexively. I see patterns others miss, and for most of my life I did so without naming the cost. This statement is not an appeal for sympathy. Please, I'm going to repeat this one again. This statement is not an appeal for sympathy. It is not a claim of superiority. It is the declaration of the truth. I am naming the framework that explains both my struggles and my contributions. A balance, if you will, of Dan Reese's. See? Wink. I am choosing transparency over silence, accuracy over stigma, and self-definition over mischaracterization. Because my silence during a time when the world is watching would be a true crime. This statement is not an appeal for sympathy, and I want everyone to get that. I offer this disclosure so that my work, my behavior, and my history can be understood in prior context, not as instability, not as a disorder alone. But unfortunately, guys, I do have a serious issue that gets triggered by the bullying and abuse that I am forced to tolerate so that I could be in my children's life in both the courts as well as systems that are outside of the courts that are just breaking the law, and there is no logic or morality behind their decisions. And I know that most of you want to find some reason that I did something wrong, but believe me, I thought this entire process through, and no, you will see very calmly that not only that I didn't do anything, I won't be able to keep a straight face. I'll be so happy when I see my boys. I could care less about hate when I'm thinking about my children. And Pierce, he changed my life yesterday. He showed me a roadmap to success. And I know what I need to do. And I know that once I have enough money in my bank account and I am in good enough relations with Essex County Jail, I will simply show up in my children's life and wait to be arrested, because it is illegal what is going on, and no matter what, I will make sure to never be violent, never create an incident, never make anyone feel uncomfortable, and never break the law. But if it means that I have to be an example, and if the courts do not want to recognize that they have broken the law and they refuse to do anything about it, then I will have to generate the amount of revenue that requires me to hire multiple law firms, as well as, unfortunately, really take on some of the foreign investors that have been soliciting me in several business models that I want to launch. But that would really make me focus more on, get it? More on, with nothing afterwards. My name is Dan Reeses, and this video will continue. Why? You'll see in a little bit. So we've discussed Maddie Wong, and for the purposes of education, which I truly pride myself in, I believe that I'm an excellent teacher because of my lived experiences and my ability to communicate with people on their level, not just on my level. I try to do the best I can to understand the person, as well as if you found yourself ever being in a text chain with me and I'm writing paragraph after paragraph, that is because your silence allows me a chance to think about the different variables of what you would respond, and I respond forward with what I believe to be your response. This is a huge issue with both iMessage and my behavior on iMessage. I would like to express to everyone that I do not recommend texting with me directly. I have done my best to have Ms. Jamie Resnick control my communications, but due to most people's inability to understand that my personal relationship with Ms. Resnick, my wife, my children, should have nothing to do with my directives of how to communicate with me and what is the most optimal way to communicate with someone that you want to both do business with and have a relationship with if they're asking to not engage in text messages. Ask yourself. Now, this man, Raul, I can't pronounce his last name. You can do the research yourself. I will explain to you in the video upcoming Wednesday exactly why this man is significant and what significance or connection I have with this man. Unfortunately, I kind of gave it away by texting Pierce by accident, and I am more than capable of defending my actions of communicating with my son. My son needs me in his life. This concept is so basic and so simple, and this is why I call for an immediate psychiatric evaluation for the judge, because what I heard her talk about is not only complete lies. I read the other transcripts, I read through the orders, I've taken an entire week to really digest what I want to say, and I really can't express to everyone that what I'm dealing with is a very serious mental health crisis that has been at the root of a big number of issues that I'm dealing with. For example, in my opinion, there's a judge. His name is Judge Gardner. Based on the transcripts that I will ask for, Judge Gardner is not mentally fit to sit on the bench. It doesn't matter what his pedigree is, and it doesn't matter that he's a judge. I'm just trying to say that if this person doesn't go through the required mental cognitive testing that I'm calling for based on, please give me a chance to show you on the transcript before you all go crazy on me, then this person is not capable of sitting on the bench and adjudicating matters that is not only tax funded, but is a public service, but changes the lives of thousands of human beings by their orders. Please, just because a human being is appointed a judge, that does not mean that we as a society need to just bow down to them and take what they say as fact. They are humans. It is only artificial intelligence, check out the show movie Mercy, it's coming up very soon, that are able to really express the validity of the future of the legal business. So for example, the rhesus paradox. The way the rhesus paradox works is, it is a symbol. This is a symbol, it's an original symbol. It's basically an infinity symbol with eyes crossing through it, and you can make glasses, and it's for anyone who likes humor or has an appreciation for anything original. Please understand that prior to creating the rhesus paradox, I was one of the first people in the country to utilize the meta glasses for the exact purpose that they were designed for. Many vloggers or bloggers find themselves very scared to utilize the glasses because, for example, let's say they're looking and there's a pretty girl and they turn their head, the viewer automatically assumes the person is a pervert. Not only is that not true, it is the constant self-reflection and the inability to just forget that you are a human being and your eyeballs can easily be a retinal scan into something called a digital consciousness and model, whereby people who are in the science community cannot prove or disprove that we do not live in a simulation. What I believe in is irrelevant. I believe we live in the real world. I do not believe that we live in a simulation. I believe that everything is real. I do not believe in conspiracy theories. I do not believe in abstract things that I cannot prove. I believe there's a moon. I believe the world is round. I believe that there's a God. I believe that human beings need to be kind to themselves. And I believe that science, math, logic, and fairness are the future. The only way to truly achieve that without really giving a cognitive mental stamina test to human beings who are in the business of making adjudicated decisions is artificial intelligence, because human beings go through traumatic situations such as Judge Esther Salas. Please take a look and Google what this poor woman had to happen in her life. Please also recognize that there is no ability for a human being like that to adjudicate matters cleanly, fairly, and impartially when she is the victim of that type of a crime. She was a victim of a man whose agenda was truly to further some very, very radical things that not only do I not believe in, I am often mischaracterized in some form of a misogynistic YouTube persona, which is not only not true. I want to express to everyone how much I condone violence, and I want to also explain to everyone that what I'm going through can only be expressed as both paranoia and delusional disassociation if it wasn't true. If what I was saying on YouTube did not end up with both Bob Menendez and his boyfriend going to prison, then yes, I can understand that. If the reality of me saying on YouTube that, hey, no matter what I say or do, the only person that could take my children away from me truly is my wife based on her actions, she has chosen to do this. How, why, I will save that until Wednesday, because my goal is to avoid that and bring my family together by creating content that simply shows the true nature of both who I am, my mental stamina, and what I'm willing to do. First, I'm willing to make some significant changes, just like this YouTube content is nothing more than me calmly, coherently, and sometimes a little bit quickly, because I want to get out a lot of content. And one of the things that you'll notice is that I haven't even gotten to the root of the actual story. And it's fascinating to me of how much time the initial preamble of the preamble is going to take, because I'm going to stop in a natural format. I'm going to stop when I'm ready to stop. But before I do that, I want to address the format of how I will be talking and why I'll be talking about it. This content is reviewed by a third party in order to witness as well as simultaneously keep track of a digital repository of the content and the timestamp of when the content is discussed, in order to then give it to me, who then has to create legal filings on my own behalf as a pro se candidate, and that's it. But the truth is that for my first chapter of the story of Dan Rhesus, and I want to say this in the most honest, peaceful way, I really have a dream, and I have a dream was not meant for me to talk about on Martin Luther King. But amongst all of these things, when I was in 4th grade or 5th grade at Harrison Elementary School, we were putting on a play around this time of the year for all the famous characters or human beings in history. And one of them was Dr. Martin Luther King. And there were open auditions. And there was a boy named Nick Young. And Nick was black, or is black. I'm white. And all Nick had to do was read the lines and he would have gotten the role. But I really wanted to make my dad proud. My parents, I was in 5th grade, my parents were going through a divorce and my father was going through a really hard time, and I knew that watching his son in English stand up on stage would really affect him. And rehearsals came out, and I'll never forget, Miss Roth was doing the play, and she didn't like me very much, but so don't many people, so I don't know, hold it against her. Plus my parents were going through a divorce and I was really filled with a lot of anger. So Nick Young goes, and it's okay, you know, he reads the lines, and then I go. And I promise you, I came out and I said, I have a dream that one day I will, well, I don't want to paraphrase it because my memory is not that good, but I delivered the most intense speech you can imagine during this play. And I watched my father walk in the back right before it started, and he clapped really proud, and like you could hear a pin drop when the speech was over, but I got a real standing ovation. And I never was in any other plays, and I wasn't very good at acting, but I will tell you that I delivered the Martin Luther King speech in Harrison better than anyone in that entire grade. And there were some kids that were actual actors. Some of them actually went on to acting careers. And I do want to say that on this day, I want to remind everyone that Martin Luther King, although he is a black, or was a black man who was inspirational in the civil liberties and civil rights movement, he is not the person that it has anything to do with the issues that are in my life. But I will give him the credit that he deserves, that he is an inspirational figure to people like myself, as well as other people who are bullied and find themselves in an impossible paradox where the world is going against you and everything you can imagine, and everyone is telling you to stop, 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 stop. And you have to make a choice. And that choice is very simple. Do you go forward with what you believe in the truth, in your convictions, in your willpower, or do you give it all up in favor of appeasing the people that have done everything they could to silence you, hurt you, ignore you, and support the other people that truly hurt you and your loved ones? Please stick around. You'll see what I choose. Now, when we go into all of this, my father, he taught me many, many, many things. And I just want to very quickly talk about that for a second. Like, please, before everyone throws a shit fit, please understand that my name is Dan Rhesus. I will talk about the most complicated subject matters in the world, and I will do it on Wednesday. And chapter 1 includes legal, which is 25 cases with an exact legal update. I might do the legal update tonight as a single video, and the goal is not to accumulate hours, but to convey a message. The amount of hours that I'm able to speak in a continuous fashion is something that is inspirational for human beings who find themselves in a position of fear of speaking in public. That is a very normal fear that really stems from a lifetime of being told either by yourself or your support system that you're inadequate or not good enough to speak. I forced myself to have no ability to reflect on the pain that I am experiencing while I am being embarrassed. Why? Because I believe that the embarrassing parts are just a byproduct of a beautiful bouquet of emotion, feelings, observations, and truth that I am able to convey. But without the negative, the positive never comes out. So if I was focusing on the fear and my inability to do the things that I cannot do, the good would never come out. So I have 25 cases exactly. I did not fabricate anything. I did not file any frivolous lawsuits, and I have kept it. I don't know how I was able to do the 25, but it's perfectly 25. Then I have selected 25 movies that display heroes where it's very similar. Then I've selected 25 movies about science. Then I have selected 50 movies that I have made in real life over the last few years, as well as when I was younger. I have also invented over 190 things in the last 5 years. I have not gone into production except for a few minor things, a few small business concepts that have not been successful financially to this point, but they are ready to go. And given the context of what I'm talking about, whereas today will be the first time where I will really present not only a viable solution, but it'll also put a lot of people on notice regarding that, hey, Dan's back. Take a chill pill. Enjoy the time that you've had. It's over. Brands, please understand that creating brands is not like just pressing a button on ChatGPT or throwing darts on a dartboard or being in a writer's room of a sitcom where there's a continuous creation process. Creating brands, in my opinion, of creativity is one of the highest forms of intelligence. That's one of the core reasons why I'm so adamant about calling this an art piece, because most people that do what I do select to do it for profit. But I will remind everyone once again that should I choose to turn a profit, I will lose a lot of artistic licensing and I will lose the core message of what I'm trying to express. And that is that money is a byproduct, not a motivating factor. When it becomes a motivating factor is when you get to the people that I will express the evil that they are doing in order to get my money. And some of them have been successful and some of them have not. But I assure you, if given an opportunity to speak, I will show you the exact truth of every single one of my cases, as well as every single one of my issues, explain even every single one of my videos. I have posted thousands of hours. What I have not posted is the most valuable videos you can imagine. Then I have my 50 business concepts. Please understand I only need one in order to make a lot of money and be more than successful, so I'm only going to focus on one at a time. The reality is we work in a little bit of a complex world, so I will have to launch maybe 3 to 5 softly and really gauge the market, putting my toes in the investor pool of bullshit and going to market regarding the validity of the mass markets and crowdsourcing, having an appetite for the concepts. Out of, let's say, 3 to 5 concepts, 2 can easily be put towards crowdsourcing and through entities that disguise me as the inventor and only have a shell corporation as the legal entity that owns it, whereas I can give power of attorney to my children, to my wife, I learned my lesson, don't worry. Then there's the game theory games. This really is nothing more than a flex and applied mathematical equations, and a lot of this requires an assistant to constantly repeat the boards. Now, whether or not I do it in one continuous video or I choose to break it up. And now that I'm doing this, I'm realizing that the continuous video format speeds up my rate of communication. And once again, unless you have a medical degree, I would highly recommend you keep your mouth shut regarding accusing me of having a mental illness, which I don't have, and understanding that what I have done in the last 5 years of going through some of the most difficult things in my life exceeds the people that want to judge me in a collective by hundreds of percentages. And I will express this to you on Wednesday's video that I am here to help, but I'm not here to be bullied, be told what to do without a caveat of some form of a semblance of a solution of support. Meaning that I would gladly listen to the advice of human beings that find themselves saying, listen, what problem do you have? Can offer this solution. Then I would say, look, brother, this is something that means a lot to me. But when human beings are, I want to be your friend, but I don't want to be your friend. Here's the advice. You're crazy. You're not crazy. I want you to have your kids back. I don't want you to have your kids back. Look, all of that stuff is not something I can focus on. I have to focus on being the best Dan Reese I could be, being the best father I could be, being the best humanitarian I could be, and being a really good friend to the people who have loved and supported me during the true difficult parts of my life. Now, the reason why I have this board up like this is because this man right here, Rahul or whatever, we'll talk about him on Wednesday night. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Allen Iverson, he said, practice. Practice? We're talking about practice? Yeah, it's practice. But practice makes perfect. The Reese's Paradox I'm going to leave up, and the $2 million I'm going to get rid of, because truthfully speaking, once this video goes live, I will already have presented to the courts my solution for some of the ongoing financial issues that I've been plagued with. And please rest assured that every single issue, as long as everyone is healthy and okay, can be solved with both time and money. So please understand that no matter what has happened in the past, I am a human being who has superior mental stamina, which means that I cannot be beaten with the brain, nor can I be beaten physically, simply because I am pretty good at fighting, and I don't randomly start fights with people, so you'd have to really go out of your way to start a fight with me. And most of the time there's cameras and law enforcement and things like that, not because I'm invincible. I could be killed. I'm a human being. But when it comes to mental stamina and the ability to orate in a continuous fashion, I will say right now, once again, I will do whatever it takes to get my family back. I will give up. I ask everyone to not show their true colors and understand that the more people mention YouTube, the more I see the motivating factor is the vanity of people caring what other people think, not what my children think, not what's the best for my children. Please understand this YouTube channel is not something I cram down people's throats. They watch it, they don't watch it, it does not matter. It does not change my relationship with my children. Only weak-minded people believe in the abstract of what other people believe in. You need to believe in what you believe in. That's the difference between me and you. I believe in what I know. I know what I believe in. You, the audience that is not in belief of what you're seeing, is that you are thinking what other people think. Please, other people are complicated. They're not you. My father taught me math. He taught me chess. Bob Casper taught me martial arts. My father got me into it. He taught me engineering. Trust me, my father was absolutely brilliant. Taught me how to play cards, taught me billiards, taught me business, taught me import-export business, finance, tennis, and I ran out of space. My mother, God bless her soul, Margarita Reeses, she taught me vanity, she taught me fear, she taught me a very important saying. And that saying is, happiness is a choice. I choose to be happy. Very selfish. But it's extremely important to understand that until you're able to not only accept this, but practice this in reality, I do not believe that one could be a good parent, because you got to be happy. You have to be happy with the circumstances that you're in. That doesn't mean you have to be happy because you've had the law broken, or that you have to be a complete nut job to believe, oh great, everything will be okay. No, everything will be okay because I'm going to make sure that it's okay. My name is Daniel M. Reeses. I will never, ever allow my children to grow up in a world where there's a judge that thinks that she can tell my children whether or not they're a good parent or not a good parent. Let me explain to everyone. If you have not broken the law and done absolutely nothing wrong, especially when you have decades of being a good little boy and making sure that everyone loves you and does everything, you do not deserve to go through what I'm going through. And I promise you, there are a silent majority of human beings that will watch this video and they will change their tune. Because the truth is not out there. This isn't X-Files. You don't need some abstract reality to understand that my name is Dan Reeses, and I've spent my entire life taking care of, helping, and doing nothing but good deeds for everyone. And I do not deserve what I'm going through, but that does not mean that I will give in. True strength and code and honor only comes out when you're under pressure and fire.